afternoon and welcome back to 48 University Place for the PrinceCast. I'm Michael Medeiros and I'm joined today by Prince contributing columnist Gregor Schubert.
Hello.
We're here today to talk about Gregor's column from last Tuesday called In That Case Just Double Tuition, and which he makes an argument about how the university and universities in general should use their resources. So Gregor, why don't you give us a background to the column and sort of what prompted you to write it?
I suppose this summer and during the last semester I found myself talking to friends a lot about what is the best way to do good for the world. And we talked about development aid and so on, and I think the conversations often came to how you can help in our context and whether we shouldn't be giving back in a sense, which is the phrase that's often mentioned right now. And yes, and that just got me thinking about what would be the best use of an individual's time at our current place in a university, and whether or not the way we currently try to help the community that surround communities outside of the Princeton bubble, for example, by small cash transfers, collecting money for good causes, and so on, and community service, whether these are the most efficient uses of our unique resources that we have.
Sure. So why don't you elaborate, we were talking earlier, more about what you think about students going to work in a Trenton soup kitchen, for example, or direct service projects, and how those benefit the community, to what extent other things could be done that are better, and to what extent also they benefit the student who's doing it.
Well, so firstly, I think there is a distinction that needs to be made between the type of activity that someone engages in order to help a community. So I think there are certain basic activities that almost anyone could do, like handing out soup, driving a food van. There's a little more demanding activities like teaching English, or supervising kindergarten kids, playing with them, things like that. And then there's way more demanding activities that usually are very high-paying jobs. There's a sense in which a lot of students choose to do the activities in the first categories, and spend an hour to several hours every week going to an institution where they do that activity. And I think it's indisputable that these activities do some good if compared to, I don't know, watching a movie by myself. Sure. Instead of helping these children.
Sure. So one counter-argument, which we had mentioned, is that doing these activities, going to the soup kitchen, volunteering in the kindergarten, could build a habit of service, and that students who do those activities maybe are more likely in the long term to feel that they should give back to the community and to be more aware of the pathways through which one can give back. So how do you feel about that sort of perspective?
When I hear that argument, there's a sense of schizophrenia that you need to introduce. I find it odd to say, well, the student he isn't at a point yet where he wants to help anyone, so he needs to execute this task, so later on he'll be philanthropic. But it seems to me that a student will only, in the first place, go out and want to do community service if they already have a philanthropic inclination in the first place. You need to have a very negative view of the human mind in a way, the human attitude towards social service, to say, well, no one is going to help unless they've seen some needy people.
No, certainly. I think there's also a definite self-selection effect in terms of the groups of students who go to these events. But I think an interesting extension off of this is programs like Teach for America or Princeton in Asia, which hire largely college students who don't have experience teaching and send them to an underdeveloped region of this country or other countries and have them teach elementary school. And again, they don't have the direct training for that. But what do you think is the social benefit or lack of programs like that?
I guess there's again an interesting point to be made about the specific purpose of these programs and what we think about education in general. It seems to me that if it is really about the sort of hero vision of education, that just a really committed, motivated individual needs to come and kind of be an example to people, and that's gonna motivate them enough to suddenly start studying and rise from whatever misery they come from, or whether education is about people who are experts in didactics and who've been trained to deal with social issues and to deal with problems that might arise in a classroom, whether those people should be dealing with students. And if we think that it's all about the hero vision, then in some sense everything we do in terms of teacher education seems sort of futile because we just need to send some motivated people there to do it, like Teach for America does.
Right.
On the other hand, if we think that it's about people who actually have life experience and certain almost a social worker background, those would be more useful in those contexts. It's not obvious that the Teach for America student can do more than give a short glimpse of motivation that is not necessarily going to stay with the students. At the same time, the program costs money. These people are paid, and
although it has results, I mean, from what I've seen of the data for TFA, most of the teachers in the program significantly raise student performance off of the baseline. So I think they are doing some direct good, although I think there is a case maybe to be made that these students could do more if they were to go into business, make more money, and hire people, well-trained teachers to do what essentially what Teach for America does. But also, yeah, sorry.
I was just going to say, I think Teach for America is actually is a good program, but there's a sense in which it sort of directs the focus from the general problem in the education system towards these individuals that do good in one place and might lead to a neglect of the broader issues.
Okay. We're running out of time, unfortunately, but why don't you give our viewers a perspective on the free trade banana argument that we've had on campus and throughout the country?
So in my column, I mentioned the fair trade bananas that are being sold at the Witherspoon Cafe in Frist, and which costs almost triple the price from a banana at the Lodge just down the road. So supposedly this money is transferred to the poor banana farmers wherever the banana is produced, and to me it just seems very problematic to say, well, if you buy one of these little yellow edible items, we will do a cash transfer to a privileged group of farmers somewhere in a small holding farmers somewhere in a developing country. Because if we would do that without the little yellow edible item being transferred, people would certainly question that and say, well, why would the university take money
and redistribute?
Yeah, why should in this university context the university take money from us and transfer it to a development organization? Shouldn't I be choosing that? And why is the university choosing that if I just want to eat a normal banana that I have to do this cash transfer?
Sure, it's definitely food for thought. Well, unfortunately we're out of time, but I want to thank you for watching this PrinceCast, and we hope you join us again next time. Bye-bye.